but I did this last year. I did a little tier list power ranking type deal. Now, this tier list is probably going to be the YouTube video, and the YouTube video will be up after the games have been completed tonight. The podcast will go live. Uh, the podcast will go live before the games, but the video won't be up until Wednesday. And just know that, however those games turn out, they're like not going to seriously change my view of any of these teams unless, God forbid, someone gets hurt severely. They have to miss a couple of months. God forbid, the whole season. That's the only thing that would make that tier list null and void. But opening night is always it's definitely a feeler game. Lots of sloppiness. Guys are amped up. They're not used to playing at full speed. They're not, they're still trying to figure out their chemistry, this, that, whatever. So just know that this tier list will remain as such unless something catastrophic happens. So I'm on tier maker, obviously. Now, the last time I did this, I think I split it conference by conference because it was like a 45-minute long segment and I didn't want to fucking do that. Or I did it, I think, contenders and non-contenders. I don't want to do that again. I want to just, bang this out in like 20 minutes or so. I have five rows here. Title favorites, deep run contenders, play in, mid but not bad, and then Wembanyama. That is the final category. And basically, I know that pretty much every team that doesn't make the playoffs is going to be Wembanyama or at least contending for that. But, there are only a few teams that are destined to be Wembanyama contenders from the jump. I'm going to go in order of how these teams are laid out in front of me. I don't know why they're laid out like this. Phillies first, and then Washington, and then Atlanta. Like, it's non-alphabetized, which I think is kind of wacky, but um, so be it, I suppose. So up first, Philly. Philly is an obvious title favorite, an obvious title contender. Embiid, Harden, Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle. They added, who the fuck did they add this offseason? They added PJ Tucker, DeAnthony Melton as well, two guys to help shore up their defense. Tyrese Maxey, I think, is due for a huge year as well. I mean, they have all the makings to be arguably the best team in the Eastern Conference, and that is saying a lot when you account for the sheer level of talent that is in the Eastern Conference. Next up, Washington. Washington is mid but not bad. They finished 35 and 47 last year, and I only know that because I literally just looked at last year's standings. I don't think that they are going to seriously challenge for Wembanyama. I think, you still got Bradley Beal. You still have a team that is kind of in limbo. It's in basketball purgatory. Rui Hachimura, Kristaps, Monte Morris, Kyle Kuzma, Will Barton, Bradley Beal. Like, these are okay players, but they are okay players on a contending team that already has another star. If there were another elite talent alongside Bradley Beal, then we're looking at Washington as, potential conference finalist, maybe, or someone who could play spoiler. Like, if we had this Washington team, but with prime John Wall when he was averaging 20 and 10, I think there'd be a lot of bets on the Wizards to go to the finals. I don't think they would win. I still think that they would be a bottom tier playoff team in the East, but then again, that's the circumstance of this season. Potentially could make a play in. I just don't think that they have the collective talent to overcome the serious depth that is the Eastern Conference. Again, you have literally 9 teams in the East who are going to be fighting for playoff spots. And Washington is just not up to that task, I don't think. Next up, Atlanta. Atlanta, deep run contender, 100%. Trae Young, DeJounte Murray. The DeJounte Murray acquisition was absolutely huge, incredible. In any other season, they'd probably be looking at a title run. But they just happened to acquire DeJounte Murray out of necessity because every elite team in the Eastern Conference is just so dense with talent. I see Atlanta as a 6th or a 7th seed in the same tier as where Cleveland is. Not a team who I realistically think will go to the finals, because any team that goes to the finals, any bottom tier team looking to make a Cinderella run in the East, is going to have to go through some combination of Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Boston. You're going to have to face at least two of those teams, and I don't think that any team in the bottom half of the standings will have the firepower to contend with that. The only team I think that can do that is Miami, but we'll get to that when I talk about them. Cleveland, another deep run contender. I currently have them slightly ahead of Atlanta. I'm very interested to see how their seeding battle goes throughout the year. I think that offensively, they just have a little bit more roundness to their game. Still, Atlanta is going to be built on Trae averaging upwards of 25 and 9. That's going to be their offense. It's going to be how he looks with John Collins and Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter as well. DeJounte Murray does provide a little bit of an outlet, I guess I should say. Like, do not get it twisted. DeJounte Murray's a demon. I mean, the numbers right here, 21 and 9, almost averaged a triple-double last year. He is just not the same caliber of offensive player as Trae Young is. Trae is infinitely more dynamic, but DeJounte Murray is no slouch. Their offense is going to be electric, and their defense is going to be much improved as well. If anything, I think that the Hawks would maybe try to reel in DeJounte Murray offensively, because he doesn't need to carry that big of a load anymore, and have him focus a lot of energy on defense. But comparatively, Cleveland's offense between LeVert, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, they have a lot of versatility, especially in that starting five. Detroit is an interesting team because they were very bad last year, close to being the worst team in the league. And I think that they do engage in a little bit of tanking, a little tanky panky, if you will, because when you look at the squad they got, you got Cade, you got Sadiq Bey, and you could potentially add, you know what, I'm going to go ahead because, again, I don't know all the rosters off the top of my head because I'm a bad content creator. You got Bojan Bogdanovic. You just waived Kemba Walker. You got Hamid Diallo, Marvin Bagley. This team is capable of tanking, and no one would say anything because they aren't going to play well beyond their expectations, especially in this Eastern Conference. I'm putting them in Wembanyama contenders for sure. Next up is the Indiana Pacers, and I'm probably going to put them in the Wembanyama category as well, just because I don't know what they're going to do about Miles Turner. I don't know what they're going to do about Buddy Hield. You got Chris Duarte for sure. You got Tyrese Halliburton, whom I absolutely love, but again, another instance of a bad team not going to not going to outplay their expectations severely, contending for Wembanyama, and I think they're going to be worse than Detroit. Milwaukee, next up, don't have to say much about them. Not just title contenders, title favorites. I think that overall they are the top. They have the best odds to win the title, at least according to FanDuel. I'm going to put them up there as well, simply because they belong. They definitely belong. And next up, Toronto. Toronto had a very impressive season last year, 48 and 34. Went to the fifth seed, played Philly in the first round. Didn't get steamrolled, but definitely looked. They had some moments against Philly. I don't want to downplay their series entirely, but they were overmatched. Okay, I don't definitely overmatched. Again, looking at this team: Siakam, Otto Porter Jr., Chris Boucher, Thad Young. I don't know if Thad is probably just gonna be a bench guy, but you never know. Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet. This is a good team. This is a very good team. I think that I definitely should have added another tier. You know, I'm going to play in and play in adjacent. I'm adding play in adjacent because just with how the structure of the play in works, like a lot of these teams towards the bottom are going to be very close to one another. And I just feel that Toronto is good, but they're not good enough to not to worry about the play in. They are they are a well above average team who is not good enough to contend for a title quite yet. So they're going play in and playing adjacent. Doesn't mean I don't like them. I think this is, again, a very good team. It's just the circumstances of the Eastern Conference are not being kind to these lower caliber playoff teams. Dallas. I think Dallas is a title contender. Christian Wood, Luka Doncic. They're coming off being what, second in the West last year. The West is going to be significant, not significantly easier, but the West is definitely the easier conference to be in. I don't think that you're going to have to worry about Phoenix this year. If you're Dallas, you're not going to have to worry about the Lakers. I mean, you got the Warriors, you got the Nuggets, you got the Clippers, but the Jazz are out of the conversation as well. Dallas could very easily win 55 games this season. And I was just looking at their roster yesterday, like they got a lot of talent, man. You got Dwight Powell, got Maxi Kleba, got Reggie Bullock. All of these dudes play incredible defense. Frank Ntilikina as well. Tim Hardaway, Dorian Finney-Smith, JaVale McGee, Christian Wood, Spencer Dinwiddie. This team is deep. They play defense, and they have Luka Doncic. They are top 4 in the Western Conference. They're going to be title favorites for sure. Now, Denver, title favorites as well. Jokic, obviously coming off back-to-back MVPs. You get Jamal Murray back, and you get Michael Porter Jr. back. You add Jeff Green, who I fucking love. I love Uncle Jeff so much. Bruce Brown as well. Aaron Gordon, Ish Smith, KCP. This is another just incredible team in the Western Conference. They are so close to Dallas. It's splitting hairs almost. You're talking about like 1-2 games difference between these teams. They're going to be much improved on defense. Granted, they weren't so bad last year, but they were average. I'm looking at it right now, 15th in defensive rating, 14th in points allowed per game. Getting Jeff Green helps. Getting Bruce Brown helps as well. KCP is going to help their cause because you need guys to defend on the perimeter. This is definitely a team that will contend for a title. Memphis. I'm hesitant to include Memphis as a title team, and I would love to. I would love to see John Morant in the finals. I just don't think that they're going to be able to beat any 2 of the 4 best teams in the West. As great as they are, I do think that Golden State, Dallas, the Clippers, and the Nuggets are all better than Memphis. So they are, a potential conference finalist team. It's just gonna be so difficult for them to take down 2 of the 4 best teams in the conference. Next up, we have Minnesota. As we know, Minnesota arguably had the biggest trade in the offseason. You have Rudy Gobert. You have Karl Anthony Towns. You have another year of Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, who came up big for them down the stretch last year. You have D'Angelo Russell as well, Naz Reid, Bryn Forbes, Kyle Anderson. You got dudes who can make plays. But I'm running into the same questions that I've been asking all of these other teams. Does Minnesota have the chance to even like make a deep run? Because I think that Memphis is better than they are. But however, the Western Conference, towards the bottom, it's so squirrely that they can put some separation between them and the worst teams and not have to worry about the play-in. I think for that reason, I think Minnesota is better than the bottom half of the Western Conference and is better than teams that will be contending for a play-in spot. So I will put them in the deep run section, but I'm going to put them behind all of the other teams because Atlanta, Cleveland, and Memphis are all very much better than Minnesota. Now we have San Antonio. San Antonio, one of those teams where it's just like, okay, what are we doing here, guys? Even last year, there was a chance that they made the play-in. This year, however, trading away DeJounte Murray has basically left them with not much talent that can help them in the short term, but potentially down the line. Keldon Johnson is probably going to be the number 1 on this team, if I had to guess. Josh Primo, Doug McDermott, a guy who I don't know why I even fucking mentioned him because he's probably going to be someone who gets dealt this year. Trey Jones, Jakob Poeltl. This is a team that will legitimately be stinky this year. This will be only like the second time in his career that Greg Popovich is coaching a team that is just objectively bad. They're just going to stink. They're going to be stinky. And because they're going to be stinky, I'm going to put them in the Wembanyama category. I'm going to put them in between the Pistons and the Pacers, only because I do feel that the Pacers will blow up the team at some point this year in an effort to tank even harder for Wembanyama. Next up, Utah Jazz. I think Utah's going to be the worst team in the league. The Clippers. I just totally blew past that point. But like Utah has nobody on this team. They got Jordan Clarkson, is really the only guy that's left. They have Mike Conley as well still, but those guys are liable to get traded. I think Jordan Clarkson a bajillion% gets traded at some point this year. And Utah is just like they also don't have a lot of super notable young talent. And that's no disrespect to any of the dudes who have been brought over to this team, namely Colin Sexton, Laurie Markkinen, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Taylor Horton Tucker, Malik Beasley. These guys are all very good. Or they're all very good, but they're not great. Like, I don't know how comfortable you would be building your team around this core because none of these guys project to be a legit number one on a championship contender. Your best player right now is Colin Sexton, who was just traded from a team trying to build a contender. You don't make those moves if you feel that Colin Sexton is better than Donovan Mitchell and helps your cause more than Donovan Mitchell does. So I think that Utah's the worst team in the league this season. Next up, the Clippers. I think that the Clippers are the second best team in the Western Conference. The only team that's going to be better than them this year is the Warriors. Kawhi's back. PG's there. There's really not much more I need to mention. Marcus Morris, Luke Kennard, Norman Powell, Reggie Jackson, Robert Covington, John Wall. I forgot about them adding John Wall. And I don't know how I forgot about it because that was a signing that I absolutely loved for them. I thought that it was a fantastic deal for both the Clippers and John Wall because John Wall no longer has to be like, he no longer has to live up to anything. I mean, like, he's put in the work. Like, remember when we were talking about him as being the best point guard in the league? Now he can go to a team, contend for a title, play a different role. I think it's just going to work out very well for him. I do think that they are not better than Philly, though. Next up, we have the Suns. I'm going to put the Suns behind Memphis, but in front of Cleveland. I think that the Suns' vibes are absolutely tarnished between everything that's happened with Jay Crowder, between everything that's happened with Robert Sarver. I think it's just going to be a mess for them. You have Chris Paul's injury history, which of course isn't fair to hold over him, but anytime you have an older guy who is like constantly dealing with an injury like a hamstring, for example, one that really never really heals or is so finicky, you have to kind of step back a little bit. I do think that Phoenix, on the shoulders of Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton, all of whom, are 100%, I think they have the potential to reascend to the elite tiers of the Western Conference. As of right now, I don't see them doing that. I do see them as being like a comfortable top six, top five, and avoiding any play-in trickery, but I don't think they're better than Memphis. They're definitely not better than Dallas, the Clippers, the Nuggets, or the Warriors, who should be coming up at some point. I don't know where the fuck they're at. Next up, Portland, another interesting team that can kind of go either way. Last season, of course, was marred by the injuries to Damian Lillard, and I don't know why I said injuries. So you got Dame, Anthony Simons, Yusuf Nurkic, Jeremy Grant. I love Jeremy Grant. But again, I'm running into this issue where like the Blazers just don't know how to build out their team properly. Because as much as I love Dame, as much as I love Jeremy Grant, I think he's a fantastic player and fits exceptionally well on Portland. This team is still not very deep, or at least on paper, they don't have any names that are jumping out to me. Like you have the top six guys who they've been had, like Nasir Little, Dame, Nurkic, Simons, those guys. You add Jeremy Grant. I mean, you have Josh Hart and Justice Winslow, but I don't. This team is not speaking to me in a overwhelmingly positive way. I think that they are playing adjacent. I think they're one of those teams that is gonna be in a playoff fight, but it's gonna be like a play-in fight between a bunch of toddlers. It's not really gonna be anything too crazy. I do think that in terms of play-in and play-in adjacent teams, they're worse off than the Raptors. Now we have Sacramento. And another fascinating team because your first inclination is to just stick them in the Wembanyama contenders. And although that is probably going to be where they end up, we have to discuss this team. You have De'Aaron Fox, you have Domantas Sabonis, you have Kevin Herter, you have Harrison Barnes, you have Davion Mitchell, who for some reason I feel like had a decent rookie campaign. He did 11.5 points, 4 assists, not bad. You got Rashawn Holmes, you got pieces. You got Malik Monk as well. And I don't know if Mike Brown is going to even want to contend for Wembanyama. Also because it's not really in their best interest. Because, like, listen, man, these dipshits traded away Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis, who I guess they feel works very well alongside the Aaron Fox. It wouldn't be the right thing to do to tank for Wembanyama, but it would be the Kings thing to do. It would be very Sacramento Kings of them to trade their their second best player for a big and then draft a big to play the same position as the big that they traded for. So my brain is telling me mid but not bad, and then my heart's telling me Wembanyama contenders because I just can't shake the stigma. I can't shake the stigma. They're doing it, man. They're gonna fucking stink it up. They're gonna stink it up for Wembanyama. I just fucking know that they are. So I'm sorry, Kings fans. I'm sorry that I don't have faith in your team, but I'm sure you guys don't have faith in your team either. Next up, New York Knicks. I think the Knicks are playing adjacent. Good team. Very good team, actually. Would be a lot better if not in this Eastern Conference. You got Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Obi Toppin. I love Obi Toppin. I felt that he was the best player coming out of his draft class. But again, you got a lot of talent, but that talent is not compared to the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. They will be fighting for a play-in spot. I don't think they're going to be, horrendously under 500. I don't think they're going to have a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're going to do just fine. They're just going to have, some very, very tough battles, even going up against teams like Atlanta and Cleveland. I predict them to be somewhere around 8, 9, you know, maybe even 10, depending on how well teams like Charlotte perform. But the Knicks are definitely in the play-in range, not because of their talent, but again, because of their situation. New Orleans. I'm putting New Orleans in the play-in category as well, play-in adjacent above Portland. I was just talking about Willie Green, and I know that the Pelicans have an insane roster. They went 36 and 46 last year and qualified for the playoffs and pushed the Phoenix Suns to 6 games. That says a lot about the type of team that this is. Again, and also this roster, BI, Zion's coming back. You have CJ McCollum, who also recently signed an extension. You have Jonas Valanciunas. You got Herb Jones. You got Larry Nance Jr. You got Devontae Graham. You have 7 guys, 7 legit players on this team. Garrett Temple is a nice veteran presence as well. Jose Alvarado, who absolutely tortured Chris Paul, who absolutely tortured him in the first round of last year. You got Jackson Hayes as well. This is a very good team. This is going to be a team that is at around 500. This team might be better than the Lakers this year. I think that New Orleans has a very good chance to be better than the Lakers. Of course, that's also because I'm not really high on the Lakers to begin with. Charlotte, Charlotte's going to be mid this year. I just know it. And it sucks. I wish I didn't say it because I really want the Charlotte Hornets to be good because I think that they're a fun young team, but I don't know what's going on with them right now. First of all, we don't know what's going to happen with Miles Bridges and his whole domestic abuse lawsuit going on right now. We don't know what's going to happen with LaMelo Ball. I mean, he's expected to miss opening night, I believe. No, he's expected to miss time to start the regular season. That already is a huge blow to anything that they were hoping to do this year. Kelly Oubre, fucking Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward. These dudes are not going to do enough to offset the absence of LaMelo Ball. And depending on how much time he misses, things could go from Charlotte being mid but not bad to being in the Wembanyama category. I'm not high on this team after seeing how they've just begun this offseason. It's just like it's the weirdest thing. And also the roster outside of that handful of guys is really not that strong. So I'm gonna put them in the mid but not bad. We'll see. They could definitely start to tank though. The Rockets are contending for Wembanyama. I think they will be the second worst team in the league. We got Jalen Green, of course, who's gonna be one of the guys to watch this year. But this roster is very, very skimpy. I mean, you still got Eric Gordon. Don't know what the fuck's going on with him. Deshaun Tate, Kevin Porter Jr., Alperen Sengun. I still think that they're going to be better than Utah, though, for some reason. I don't know. That's just what my heart is telling me, but we'll see. I think that Houston and Utah are going to be the two worst teams in the NBA this season. Now we have Miami. Miami is a deep run contender. I am going to reluctantly put them ahead of Cleveland and ahead of Atlanta. I really wish I weren't doing this, but you cannot overlook Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. You cannot overlook Tyler Hero as well. Actually, I am slow. I'm going to look at their roster for this year, and then I'm going to talk myself out of this very decision. Bam, Ty, JB, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Oladipo. Yeah, I am actually going to put them behind Cleveland because I still don't like Miami's depth. That was a huge thing for me last year with them. They didn't do anything drastic this offseason to really patch their holes. I pray that their offense looks better than it did against Boston in the ECF. But listen, if I were a Heat fan, I would not be excited. I would have low expectations for this team. And again, they barely finished on top of the Eastern Conference last year. That was with the East not being as good as it will be this year, and also with Boston getting off to a sub 500 start to begin the season. So there's that as well. Chicago, deep run contender. A lot of this is based off of the current injury situation. I'm actually going to put them behind Atlanta for right now. DeMar is going to come out smoking. Levine's going to come out smoking as well. We don't know what's going on with Lonzo. I can't recall when Alex Caruso is going to be coming back. And you just simply do not recover from losing two of your best perimeter players. Oh, it looks like Alex Caruso is going to start the season. Okay, we'll see about that. They added Andre Drummond, Patrick Williams. I hope he, plays well this year. Again, another guy who dealt with an injury to start last season and didn't really come back until later. Behind Atlanta is a decent spot. And we'll see what happens once everybody gets healthy. That's the big thing for them. Brooklyn, title contender. I want to say they're better than Philly. I'm going to say they're better than Philly because I'm a hater and I love to hate on Philadelphia. KD, Kyrie, Ben Simmons. That is a trio that on paper will absolutely smoke 95% of the league. You add in Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Patty Mills, Nick Claxton, Royce O'Neal. This team did get better this offseason, and this is the year for them. If it doesn't work out this year, it's not going to work out. And I hate to say that as a fan, but that's simply the reality. You have your team finally healthy. This year, you've overcome all of the bullshit with Kyrie and KD. This is the best team that KD and Kyrie have had together. You have Ben Simmons, who, when healthy, is a defensive player of the year guy, is an all NBA caliber player. You have another year of Cam Thomas's development. You have an elite wing defender in Royce O'Neal. You just added Markieff Morris. You added one of the Morris brothers. I can't remember who is a floor spacer. One of those enforcer type guys. Another year of Nick Claxton. Another year of fucking like all of the young guys who you did kind of lean on a little bit last year. Like this is the year for them. I don't know if they're going to win. I do think that we have the potential to see the oddest finals matchup in a while, the Brooklyn Nets versus the LA Clippers. That is my way too early prediction for the NBA Finals. I don't want to bet on the Nets and jinx them, but I'm going to do it because I just love anarchy. Now, we have OKC. I think that OKC is going to contend for Wembanyama whether they want to or not. You have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously elite talent, but you also have Sam Presti. And Sam Presti is a simp for draft picks. He will stop at nothing until he has the rights to every pick from every NBA team. And just looking at this roster, it sucks that Chet Holmgren went down, but like this team is also going to contend to be arguably the worst team in the league. I mean, guys, look at this squad. Marquise Chris, Mike Muscala, this fool is still in the league. Jalen Williams, don't know who that is. You got Lou Dort, obviously still a great talent. Darius Baisley, David Nwaba, Josh Giddey, SGA. You got Poku. Like you have multiple guys with a lot of potential, but they are very clearly Wembanyama contenders. I'm gonna sandwich them in between the Rockets and Pacers, just because Shea is he's like a walking 25 points a night at this time. And that'll get you far in today's NBA. Also playing in the Western Conference definitely helps. We're almost done here. We have 4 teams: the Warriors, the Celtics, the Lakers, and the Magic. Right away, I think that the Magic, I might be silly for expecting this, but I think the Magic are going to be mid, but not bad. We'll see, man. Markel Fultz, just kidding. He's not going to be there. He's hurt. Gary Harris. Okay, never mind. I'm looking at the injury report. I totally forgot all these fools were hurt. Yeah, no, they're going in the Wembanyama category. They're going. I'm gonna put them ahead of Houston just because I think Houston is very bad and is going to be very bad this year. Still got Paolo, who's going to be fun to watch. You got Cole Anthony, R.J. Hampton, Mo Bamba, but yeah, they're not really going to do anything in the Eastern Conference. I actually can't believe that I thought they would. Golden State should be the favorite to go back to the finals just because, as it stands, they are the best team in the NBA right now. They were the only team standing after the postseason. They are legitimate title favorites as well. I am actually going to slide them to the top of this board because they deserve it. You have Steph, you have Clay, you have Draymond. You have essentially the same team that just won you the finals. I know there's all that bullshit with Draymond, and his player option and him socking Jordan Poole, but Poole got a new contract. Wiggs got a new contract. Draymond is still under contract for this year. Legitimate title favorites. I don't know what more I can say about that. Celtics are, I'm going to, give them the respect they deserve. Even though I think they're going to underperform this year, they are an improved team. Granted, Danilo Gallinari is not going to be with them this year because he tore some shit in his knee, the same knee that he tore a few years ago, I believe. Robert Williams is going to be out as well for a couple of months, but ultimately we've seen what Boston can do after getting off to a slow start. I mean, they did it last year. This team still has Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon. They had a Blake Griffin. I don't know how much of an impact player he'll be, but you still have a lot of the same rotation who just took you to the finals. It's only fair to stick them at the top of the Eastern Conference, even though I don't believe that they will finish there. I think that they will finish somewhere in the top 5, but I think it's only the respectable thing to do. And lastly, we have the Lakers, who are going to be playing adjacent. I'm going to stick them behind Toronto, but ahead of the Knicks. It's still very hard to bet against LeBron James. So something's going to happen with them this year. I think they will make the playoffs, although I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make the playoffs. That's my stance on the Lakers this year. LeBron is LeBron. AD's healthy. You got Russ coming off the bench, so who knows what that'll be like. But ultimately, it's still LeBron. It's still LeBron. We'll see. Granted, they don't have THT anymore. Their depth could be looking a little sussy-wussy, but their depth was looking sussy after they traded for Anthony Davis. They got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's going to moonlight as the quarterback for the Colts and as the small forward for the LA Lakers. They got Dennis Schroeder, who I think is a fine player. Kendrick Nunn, Patrick Beverly, of course. How did I forget about that? Like, they have decent players. They got Lonnie Walker as well. I think Lonnie Walker is a very good player. But ultimately, this is not the Lakers team that it was when LeBron signed, and definitely not the same team that it's definitely not the same Lakers team that it was when they traded for Anthony Davis. So this is it, guys. I can't believe I have 6 title favorites, 8 title favorites. That's fucking insane. Like, 8 teams can legitimately win the NBA Finals this year. That is crazy to me. And this is with me lowballing Phoenix, Memphis, Miami. Like, holy